Karen's scream sliced through the hospital courtyard like a scalpel through flesh. "You don't get to cut me off." "Old man," she bellowed, her voice a venomous whip, cracking over the stunned crowd. It was a Wednesday afternoon, and the courtyard of St. Mary's Hospital was a microcosm of chaos. Patients, nurses, and visitors frozen, jaws dropped. As Karen, a 42-year-old real estate agent with a chip on her shoulder the size of a Buick, unleashed her fury on Walter, a 68-year-old heart patient who dared to shuffle past her in the parking lot. Walter, frail and hunched, his hospital gown flapping in the chilly wind, had only wanted to reach the bench for a moment of peace. His heart condition, a ticking time bomb, left him breathless from even the shortest walks. But Karen, late for a meeting and incensed by Walter's slow pace blocking her path, saw his existence as a personal affront. "Move it, or I'll move you myself," she'd snapped, her manicured nails jabbing the air. When Walter, startled, turned and mumbled an apology, Karen's temper ignited. She shoved him hard, her palms slamming into his chest. Walter gasped, his hands clawing at his heart as he crumpled, the crowd gasping in unison. The hospital courtyard, usually a quiet haven with its neat flower beds and wooden benches, transformed into a battlefield. Nurses sprinted toward Walter, their sneakers squeaking on the pavement, while a security guard, a burly man named Javier, pushed through the onlookers, his radio crackling with urgency. Karen, undeterred, stood over Walter, her face a mask of righteous indignation. "He's faking it," she shrieked, pointing at the old man now wheezing on the ground. "This is what's wrong with people today, always playing the victim." The tension was electric, the air thick with disbelief. A young nurse, Emily, knelt beside Walter, her hands trembling as she checked his pulse. "Sir, stay with me," she whispered, her voice steady despite the panic in her eyes. Walter's face was ashen, his breath shallow and ragged. The crowd murmured, a mix of outrage and fear, as Javier grabbed Karen's arm. "Ma'am, step back now," he growled, but Karen yanked free, her blonde bob swinging wildly. "Don't touch me, I know my rights," she spat, her voice rising to a pitch that could shatter glass. This was Karen at her peak, unapologetic, untouchable, a storm of entitlement. She'd built a reputation in her small town for bulldozing anyone who crossed her, from baristas to city council members. But today, she'd chosen the wrong target. Walter wasn't just any patient. He was a retired school teacher, beloved by generations, whose quiet dignity had touched countless lives. His collapse wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a spark that ignited a reckoning. The courtyard pulsed with chaos as Walter's condition worsened. Emily, the nurse, shouted for a crash cart, her voice cutting through the crowd's murmurs. "He's going into cardiac arrest," she cried, her hands pressing rhythmically on Walter's chest. The onlookers, a mix of patients in wheelchairs, visitors clutching coffee cups, and staff in scrubs, formed a tight circle, their faces a gallery of horror and anger. Karen, still defiant, paced like a caged animal, her phone now in hand, recording the scene as if to prove her innocence. "See, he's fine. This is all a setup," she yelled, her voice cracking with desperation. Javier, the security guard, had had enough. "Put the phone down, lady," he ordered, his voice low but laced with steel. Karen spun on him, her eyes blazing. "You can't tell me what to do. I'm a taxpayer, I pay your salary." The crowd's murmurs grew into a low roar, a collective disgust rising like a tide. A woman in a wheelchair, her oxygen tank hissing softly, shouted, "You're a disgrace." Others joined in, their voices overlapping in a chorus of condemnation. Walter's frail body jerked under Emily's compressions, his eyes fluttering as the crash cart arrived. A doctor, a harried woman in her 50s named Dr. Patel, took charge, barking orders as she prepared the defibrillator. "Clear," she shouted, and the crowd held its breath as Walter's body jolted. Karen, for the first time, faltered, her phone lowering slightly as she watched the scene unfold. but her hesitation was fleeting. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, loud enough for nearby ears. "He's milking it." The crowd's anger reached a boiling point. A young man, a visitor named Marcus who'd been watching silently, stepped forward. "You pushed him," he yelled, his voice raw with emotion. "You saw he was sick, and you pushed him, Marcus." A college student who'd come to visit his grandmother had seen the whole thing. His accusation hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Karen's face flushed red, but she doubled down. "He bumped into me. I was defending myself." The lie was so blatant it drew gasps. Emily, still working on Walter, shot Karen a look of pure contempt. "You're unbelievable," she muttered under her breath, her focus returning to her patient. Walter's pulse was faint, but it was there. The defibrillator hummed again, and Dr. Patel's voice was a lifeline in the chaos. "Come on, Walter, stay with us," she urged, her hands steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Karen's bravado began to crack as the crowd closed in, their voices a rising tide of accusations. "You caused this. How could you? He's dying because of you." Javier grabbed her arm again, this time with no intention of letting go. "You're coming with me," he said, his grip firm as he steered her toward the hospital's security office. Karen struggled, her heels digging into the pavement, but the crowd's fury was a force she couldn't fight. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. Inside the security office, Karen sat in a hard plastic chair, her arms crossed, her face a mask of defiance. Javier stood by the door, his expression unreadable, while a police officer, Sergeant Lopez, took her statement. "I didn't do anything wrong," Karen insisted, her voice sharp but trembling at the edges. "That old man was in my way, and he got aggressive. I was protecting myself." Sergeant Lopez, a seasoned officer with a no-nonsense demeanor, raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, we have multiple witnesses who say you shoved him. Hard. He's in the ICU now, fighting for his life." Karen's eyes widened, but she quickly recovered, leaning forward. "They're lying. They're all in on it. You know how people gang up on someone like me, successful, outspoken?" Lopez sighed, scribbling notes. "We also have security footage," he said, his tone flat. Karen's face paled, but she didn't back down. "That tape will prove I'm innocent," she snapped, though her voice lacked conviction. Outside, the hospital was abuzz with activity. News of the incident had spread like wildfire, and a small group of protesters, former students of Walter's, had gathered outside, holding signs that read, "Justice for Walter and no more Karens." Marcus, the young man who'd called Karen out, was among them. He'd stayed at the hospital, waiting for news on Walter's condition. Emily, the nurse, found him in the waiting room and gave him a tired smile. "He's stable for now," she said, her voice heavy with relief. But it was close. Too close. Marcus nodded, his jaw tight. "She can't get away with this," he said. Emily agreed, her eyes fierce. "She won't." Back in the security office, Karen's story began to unravel. The security footage, grainy but clear enough, showed her shoving Walter with unmistakable force. Lopez played the clip on a small monitor, and Karen's bravado crumbled. That's not what it looks like," she stammered. But Lopez wasn't buying it. "You're being charged with assault," he said, his voice calm but firm. "And if his condition worsens, those charges could escalate." Karen's world tilted. Assault. Her, the woman who'd clawed her way to the top of her real estate firm, who'd never let anyone stand in her way. She opened her mouth to protest, but Lopez was already cuffing her. "You have the right to remain silent," he began, and for once, Karen had no retort.